इसको सेव कर दो भाई।
Good morning, everyone. My today's topic is on policy related to liver health, best buys for MASLD and MASH. So today's session, I'll be taking in 6 parts. First, introducing what are World Health Organization's best buys, why MASLD and MASH need them. Then the Delphi study, on the basis of which they have developed and identified 15 interventions for MASLD and MASH. Then what is a concept called as quick buys? Then some critique studies on this, and then relevance to ILBS and our country. So what are WHO best buys? So if we see the global NCD policies evolution year by year, then best buys, so the umbrella term was this WHO Global Action Plan for NCDs, which is till 2030. And best buys are the introduction here somewhere in 2022 for the implementation. And these are actually interventions that are highly cost effective, feasible to implement, and which have a strong evidence of impact. while keeping in mind per dollar spent, the cost effectiveness analysis as well. So these best buys, they are prioritized for low and middle income countries where resources are limited. So just again, the NCD policy global roadmap. So just one SDG 3.4 and WHO action plan, alongside which these best buys, which are a menu of total 90 cost effective interventions, out of which 28 were identified as high effectiveness, were identified. Just to note here is that in 2025, in December, high-level meeting by UN General Assembly, liver diseases were included here in this umbrella framework. So why a menu of cost-effective evidence-based intervention matters? Because of the starking numbers in the global NCD burdens. 2025 data says 40 million deaths, 18 million premature deaths, and again, keeping in view the SDG 3.4, where we target reduction of premature NCD mortality to 1/3. So this progress on NCD prevention control has been insufficient and disproportionate. So that's why we need these set of best buys. This is the document which introduced it in 2022, and Appendix 3 evolved as per this. So this was the second edition released in 2024. And again, a global action plan being the basis of this. So just broadly, we see global action plan, two of the objectives are directly focus of this talk: reduction of risk factors and strengthening health systems. So again, to just reiterate, best buy means three things: cost effective. So if we are spending less than $100, so per disability adjusted life year, we are saving. So it has to be cost effective, affordable, financially feasible, and implementation ready. So this is the theoretical part of it, how we interpret best buys. So if we are spending just less than $100 to gain one healthy life year, then it is effective intervention. If more than $100 and saving for gaining one healthy life year, then effective with cost effectiveness analysis in effective. This is the best buy, this is effective. And recommended is when cost effectiveness analysis is not available. So this is how we grade these interventions, and 28 interventions are in the best buys, which every country should be following. So this is just a consolidated view, and if we see this broadly, then regarding the although the risk factors are overarching like tobacco, alcohol, diet, and physical activity, but liver per se or MASH is not explicitly in the best buy network. Only if we look at the cancers, then hepatitis B vaccination is being endorsed to prevent liver cancer here. So that was the reason that best buys for MASL and MASH were now introduced. So just giving you an idea of what are these best buys. So for example, if we look at the tobacco risk factor, so these are the best buys, like increasing excise taxes or large graphical warnings or comprehensive bans on tobacco advertising, secondhand smoke reduction, and effective mass media campaigns. So these were the best buys, followed by some effective and other recommended buys. So for example, in Kyoto, Japan, no smoking patrol officers enforce public smoking bans when wearing this. Then again, this is the broadly the distribution of 28 WHO best buys, with only hepatitis B immunization being from the liver side. So why MASL and MASH need them is that although the medical community has already updated the guidelines for MASL and MASH, AD also now recommends liver disease screening in all people with diabetes. We have guidelines with fibrosis risk stratification. But what is missing at the policy level is that there is no mention of liver disease as such till the UNGA declaration in December on the in the NCD policy or action plan, and liver disease is absent from global action plan, which is like the Bible for NCD reduction. So why we need best buys for MASL and MASH? Because we need a clear set of policy actions for countries to address these unmet needs, from prevention to diagnostic to linkage to care, treatment, and management. And again, the numbers are huge, and despite this burden, MASL and MASH remains absent from the best buys. So these are, as also published in our WHO CC data, that now MASL is the leading cause of hepatocellular cancer, even exceeding the alcohol, hepatitis B, C viruses after diabetes. So why does it make sense to also introduce MASLD and MASH best buys is because of the shared risk factors, and so we need shared solutions. So this is in the core to all risk factors to NCD. So this Delphi study was published this year on where they did a Delphi study of 321 experts across 85 countries to identify MASLD and MASH intervention that could be considered as WHO best buys, but for MASLD and MASH, and whether they qualify as quick buys. So quick buys is a concept that because the political electoral cycle is for 5 years, so they want some political commitment in the form so that the results are seen within 5 years. So these are quick buys, and also come to this later. So evidence before this Delphi consensus that substantial clinical momentum was there, but a clear policy void has been seen. So this Delphi, the standard process, 24 experts, 15 evidence brief, 575 participated, and all 15 interventions were reached after this, where more than 80% consensus threshold was reached. So expert panel comprised of these regions, but what they saw was that liver specialists dominated the panel, and since CVD is the leading cause of death in MASLD, so cardiologists were underrepresented, and this was skewed to high income settings and hepatology. Then these 15 out of these 15 interventions, these were the 15 interventions ranked by agreement. We'll come to these when we will map them against what ILBS is doing. But 12 interventions were of more than 90% combined agreement, and 3 interventions were where agreement was some less than 90%, but more than 78%. So these interventions were across 4 major domains, as we all know: behavior, lifestyle, screening and clinical care, environment and policy, and system level enablers. So top 3 best buys for MASLD and MASH were to manage overweight, obesity, and type 2 diabetes, and management of cardiometabolic mortalities, metabolic syndrome. Was the single most endorsed intervention. And then promoting awareness on MASLD and MASH was seen as a low cost and high impact priority, but must be linked to actionable pathways. So screening without actually linking them to treatment is a point that we need to take care here. Then integration of care across disciplines: primary care, hepatologist, endocrinologist, obesity specialist, and every specialty concern. The only quick buy which came out of this Delphi was to screen for liver fibrosis in type 2 diabetes patients. So this was a single intervention that crossed the 80% threshold for 5-year feasibility. So quick buy, that's something, if we want to pick one thing that we have to start doing, is routine liver fibrosis screening in diabetes patients. So 87.7% of specialists said yes. So why this makes sense? Because it is already aligned with the international guidelines, and as per ADA consensus, it is linked to better outcomes, improved liver, cardiovascular, and renal prognosis. And we can use the existing infrastructure in the fields. We already have ALT, AST, platelet availability, if not FibroScan in field. So we can use existing infrastructure, and then high pretest probability, because we already know that MASLD prevalence is high in diabetics. So what were the limitations of this Delphi study was, as we saw, the skewed panel, then cost effectiveness analysis, which is again missing from our profile also at this point, that Delphi grade assessment is not at par with the cost effectiveness analysis, and no pediatric data was included in this. So quick buys, just introducing to quick buys. Quick buys were introduced in 2025, and since we are approaching the target of the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, and also the WHO action plan, so this gives us the 5-year impact window. So these are the best buys that can deliver measurable public health impact within the next 5 years. So these are the quick buys in a snapshot, which are again as we saw for tobacco, alcohol, unhealthy diet and all. And these are by the list. So if they are, the intervention is effective less than 1 year, it will take 2 to 3 years to show results, or 3 to 5 years. Now, one paper published in BMJ argued that this best bias cannot be applied uniformly across countries, and local context where the role of implementation science actually comes, whether the intervention is actually worth buying or not. So they then classified into best bias or wasted bias or contestable bias based on that. And important thing here to notice that we have to actually classify this by this decision-making tool, SEED tool, systematic thinking for evidence-based efficiency decision, to determine what fits for our national profile. And also health technology assessment, where we can map the intervention to the cost effectiveness analysis. So what is the relevance to ILBS or Indian profile? So in August 2024, in Ministry, a committee was formed, chaired by Director ILBS, to examine NAFLD inclusion in the global NCD agenda. And then it was actually this draft resolution, NAFLD draft resolution, was prepared to inform India's advocacy in the UN and WHO negotiation process. And in September 2025, in high-level meeting at General Assembly at UNGA, this was passed. So declaration was adopted where liver diseases were now included in the declaration in December, and for WHO formal integration is expected somewhere where World Health Assembly will be in May 2026. So this is a busy slide, but India's adaptation to WHO best buys and quick buys for MASLD. So we have a number of policies that are aligned with WHO best buys, like trans fat capping, tax on sugar sweetened beverages, movements like Fit India, Eat Right, or alcohol control, and in tobacco, the Empower package. And India's MASLD infrastructure, we have actually integrated NAFLD into a national program in 2021 and updated recently in 2024 with the revised guidelines and training modules, which ILBS developed in collaboration with Ministry. And FIB for triaging is happening in fields at primary or secondary care levels. And we are also pushing the PIP plans for procurement of fibroscans at CHC or district level. Then continuum of care cascade, Ayushman Arogya Mandirs, and cascade training of trainers. So ILBS has trained now 9 states and UTs for implementation of NAFLD guidelines. Quick buys that India is following is the Indian Hypertension Control Initiative at PHC, and front of package nutrition labeling, and mass media campaigns and all. So if we, I have tried to map the best buys of ILBS against the community initiatives that we are taking. So first best buy, the integration of care. So because we have integrated the national program, we have updated these guidelines, as I said, with the training modules for medical officers. And we have also tried to link it to the primary care treatment and screening. Then community tailored models, we have huge cohort data now from Delhi, with 56% of Delhi population affected by MAFLD, and then in Rajasthan around 30%. And we have also started studying the community genetics sub-cohort for PNP, LA3, HSD, and both, etc. Then third best buy is fibrosis screening in at-risk. So MAF6 risk score was validated in 33,000 Delhi residents for a community deployable algorithm. And fibrosis screening in type 2 diabetes, we have actually had a thesis out of this from Delhi data, and we have now devised a risk score, ABCD score, where with the help of 5 non-invasive risk factors, we can stratify the population. The Anganwadi Asha can also do it without doing fibroscan for fatty liver as well as some extent fibrosis. Screening in overweight and obesity, we are already doing Live Healthy screening health camps. For provider and patient awareness, 9 states have been trained, modules have been updated, and our new project, Find Time for Your Liver, in association with Siemens Healthineers, we are now developing a learning management system for ASHA ANMs with Triple IT Bangalore for provider awareness and patient awareness. Then workplace wellness programs, various screening camps, health days, and other health days at ILBS. What Best Buy that I thought that is missing in current portfolio is the urban design of physical activity. And for monitoring and evaluation, again, the NP-NCD digitization, because one is the national NCD portal that ministry is operating, and one that we are building now in-house for working with states through learning management system. Then accessibility to health foods through our initiatives, the Aapti Jigar or Green Kitchen and Healthy Liver dietary model. Lifestyles education schools, Y Smiles is our initiative, Young Stronger India through 1 million health educated students, where we have reached 18,000 plus children across 6 states, and we have done FibroScan for more than 2,000 of them. Next, alcohol assessment and counseling. I'm sure many initiatives are in place, but one that we were a part of were HEALED initiative, healthy liver, alcohol abuse, and liver disease prevention. So this covers MASLD, MET-LD as per the recent nomenclature. Then again, what is missing in our portfolio is smoking cessation in MASLD, and then managing obesity, overweight, type 2, again, the mobile van, and also we are now doing risk stratification in the East Khasi district in Meghalaya. For HCC surveillance, we have WHO's collaborating center here on liver diseases, giving this the formal channel. So again, out of these best buys, these are the quick buys that are ready to deploy. One is the ABCD score based on the Rajasthan data, and other is the learning management system development. So these two coverage gaps which we have identified, I think for urban design of physical activity, we can co-brand a liver healthy workplace charter with FICCI for corporate campuses. And for smoking cessation, we can launch a tobacco-free liver clinic badge across liver OPDs with mandatory nicotine screening and massive intake. Thanks.
Good, Nika. I know if there are any questions or comments, I know it's a long way to go, but you just made one suggestion that you were recommending FibroScans at CSC level or district level, CSC level. On the other hand, you're saying that your ABCD score can give you a lot of information. What is your take on that?
So, sir, we had ICMR task force project, which we completed in Sanganer, Bassi and Chaksu, 3,200 sample size in Rajasthan. So we developed a machine learning model where we identified 5 risk factors: age, BMI, waist circumference, history of diabetes, and raised blood pressure. And we got good male and female specific female risk scores with AOC of more than 85 there. So that actually we are thinking that because ASHA ANMs, they do annual health surveys. So if we can, deploy this risk factor scoring at primary healthcare level, then we saw that there is approximately 10% reduction in false positive referrals from the primary to secondary level, which was unnecessarily burdening the secondary healthcare system. For FibroScancer PIP, the project implementation plan in ministry, which gets formed, they have a budget of approximately 80 lakhs to 1 crore. So ultrasounds are already like saturated in secondary and district level. So if at least one every district is a far-fetched idea, but at least 2 or 3 districts have this, so that we have a referral system where we can link the patients who have FIB4 more than like 2.4, 2.5. So,
any other comments? I think there are none. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. The topic that was given to me is human microbiome to identify predictors associated with development of liver failure. I'm Dr. Jaswinder Singh. I'm an associate professor at the Department of Molecular Cell Medicine. We work on alcohol hepatitis. I have nothing to disclose. So alcohol-associated hepatitis has a wide spectrum from steatosis, hepatitis, cirrhosis, to hepatocellular carcinoma. It is an acute inflammatory condition and has a mortality up to 50%. There are many clinical challenges. First, there is limited therapy. The steroid response rate is only 60%. There is high resistance, and therefore there are need of other alternative therapies. So if you see the pathophysiology of alcoholic hepatitis, hepatocyte injury is predominantly due to oxidative stress, inflammation, and perturbation of the gut-liver axis. Small molecules like metabolites and proteins comes from the gut into the circulation and can activate the immune cell, thereby causing hyperinflammation state in severe alcoholic hepatitis. If you see the current and emerging therapies, nutritional support, antioxidant response, stimulation of liver regeneration by GCSF or IL-22, some treatment for AUD or steroid becomes the mainline treatment. Microbial pathobions contribute to immune remodeling in alcoholic hepatitis. All the gut microbiome releases toxic metabolites and proteins which activates the immune cells, thereby causing hyperinflammation. Therefore, pre and probiotic therapies in alcoholic hepatitis make perfect sense. There is a wide role of neutrophil in alcoholic hepatitis. Recently, there's a paper which says that IL-8 positive neutrophil induces a vicious cycles that derive unstoppable inflammation in alcohol-associated hepatitis. So why multi-omics and why omics in alcoholic hepatitis? Because we can capture system-level changes, identify multiple biological layers. To understand multiple biological layer means we can do metabolomics, proteomics, transcriptomics, epigenomics, and genomics, and integrate them to identify biomarkers, to identify molecules which have prognostic evaluations, to identify targeted therapies and molecules which can be used for early diagnosis. There are many known biomarkers for alcoholic hepatitis like cytokeratin 18, CD163, TNF-alpha, IgG. Cytokeratin 18 is basically an apoptotic cleavage fragment, which is M30 and M65. It is often seen in the liver biopsy, and the levels are significantly increased in SH patients. CK18 can be used for diagnosis and prognosis of alcoholic hepatitis, and it correlates very well with 90-day mortality. We can use proteomics to identify severe alcoholic hepatitis. Recently, many papers used LCMS and identified more than 1,500 proteins, which could significantly segregate SCH patients. Interestingly, thrombin and HGF-A together showed a 95% confidence interval in segregating SCH patients. Extracellular vesicle is also an important area and could be used for segregating SCH patients. In this study, extracellular vesicles was found to be significantly increased in the circulation of SCH patients as compared to alcoholic cirrhosis or heavy drinkers. Now, let me talk about the therapeutic axis. If you see the therapeutic axis, oxidative damage, gut-liver axis, inflammatory pathways, and apoptotic pathways are the central four themes for therapy in severe alcoholic hepatitis. So if we identify any protein or metabolites, we can alter them and drive a therapy in severe alcoholic hepatitis. IL-22 works in the same line. It works on hepatic regeneration and lowers down the inflammation. In this study, F652, which is a fusion protein of IL-22 and IgG, was given to patients with MELD 11 to 20 and MELD 21 to 28, and a 28 degree, a decrease in 28 days MELD and 42 days MELD was seen. Fecal microbiota transplant is a very attractive option for severe alcoholic hepatitis. This is a meta-analysis of 8 trials conducted in India, which showed that FMT has a promise and it gives 28 days survival with an odd ratio of 2.3 and 90 days survival with an odd ratio of 2.53. Recently, Professor Bernschnabel and group showed that Enterococcus faecalis is very important and it secretes a protein which is called a cytolysine, and this cytolysine can segregate the survivors and non-survivors. They also said that bacteriophage therapy could be used for targeting cytolysine positive Enterococcus faecalis and reduce ethanol-induced liver injury in mice model. So, Enterococcus faecalis and phage treatment can be used for severe alcoholic hepatitis. So microbes and microbial products play a key role in development of SCH. In this, at ILBS, we study microbiome by metagenome or metatranscriptome. But in my lab, we have devised a new method which is called a metaproteome. So now we are going to, I'm going to explain you what is metaproteome. Metaproteome is basically refers to a complete set of protein expressed by the collective microbiome, the community of microbiome in a specific environment such as the human gut or any other environment. It encompasses protein produced by all microorganisms present, including bacteria, viruses, fungus, and algae. So by doing a protein sequencing, we can identify all type of microbes, fungus, and other things. So what we do is we take a sample type, we isolate the protein, we make peptide, and we do LC-MS analysis. And this LC-MS analysis is then searched against different database to identify different type of species of fungus, bacteria, and other microorganisms. So what does metaproteome do? Metaproteome help us to understand how microbiota functions. So it is the functional correlate of the microbiome. So now I will show our efforts in understanding this. So we have worked on microbial production product and induction of hyperinflammation in steroid resistance in SAH. Urobilinogen was identified and it was published in the Molecular Therapy in 2025. And this is the unpublished data where we show that microbial thiocyanine induce PRKH signaling and suppress glucocorticoid receptor activity in SAH patient. So let me brief with this work. In this paper, we show that circulating urobilinogen augments inflammation and corticosteroid non-response in severe alcoholic hepatitis. Urobilinogen is a metabolic product of bilirubin and it is synthesized in the intestine. When it is present in ample amount in the intestine, it causes leaky gut, comes into the circulation, causes a vicious cycle of neutrophil activation, and also works on the glucocorticoid receptor activity and lowers them. To understand this, to identify, we worked on 223 patients with severe alcoholic hepatitis and we did metabolome analysis. The biomarker identified was validated in a separate set of patients and benchmark against different clinical criteria. We did the functional analysis. For example, we checked urobilinogen for inflammation, glucocorticoid response, intestinal permeability, and FMT because bacteria produces urobilinogen. We thought maybe FMT could reverse, change the bacteria and therefore contribute to a lower level of urobilinogen production. So when we did metabolomic analysis at baseline day 3 and day 7, we found that the responders and non-responders to corticosteroid had significant differences in the metabolomic profile. You can see at the PCA level also, the responders and non-responders were segregated. We see at the heat map level, you can see that there are significant differences between the responders and non-responder, and the non-responder, that by day 0 to day 7, there was no change. So this says that metabolic profiles of non-responders does not change upon corticosteroid administration. That's why they are called as non-responders. We found that urobilinogen was significantly increased in non-responders and was able to segregate the survivors and non-survivors. When validated, urobilinogen was also significantly increased in the non-survivors, and by benchmarking, we found that urobilinogen was found as the best marker. Now, metaproteome is very important in severe alcoholic hepatitis. To understand, we first studied the metabolic product of the bacteria and we identified that bilirubin level and urobilinogen level was significantly increased in non-responders. Now, urobilinogen is synthesized inside the intestine and 82% is excreted. Only 18% comes into the circulation. Consider a state where there is a dysbiosis, there is a leak, and you have the bacterial colonies coming out. So this bacterial colony would be utilizing the bilirubin and converting them into urobilinogen. This urobilinogen will be now available to the liver and would cause inflammation in the liver. And to assess this, to understand this, we did this integration analysis where we integrated the plasma metaproteome and the metabolome to identify urobilinogen associated bacteria. You can clearly see that urobilinogen directly correlates with these bacteria, and these bacteria are known to produce urobilinogen. The levels of these bacteria were significantly increased in the non-responders as compared to responders. Now, let me do the functional assessment of urobilinogen. We functionally assessed the urobilinogen and we found that urobilinogen at a concentration was able to activate neutrophil and induce respiratory burst in neutrophil. We found that urobilinogen was inducing the H2-TCFA, that is the oxidative stress, and TNF-alpha level. And proteomic analysis showed that urobilinogen was able to induce TNF-alpha, TGF-beta, MAP kinase, all the inflammatory pathway when treated to the neutrophils. Can urobilinogen modulate glucocorticoid receptor expression? Yes, it does. Now, glucocorticoid is made up of two units, GR alpha and GR beta. So if there is a significant increase in GR beta, there would be a downregulation or inhibition of transactivation and transactivation. What would this happen? This would lead to significant increase in cytokines and chemokines associated to inflammatory pathway. This suggests that in our study, urobilinogen at a 60 unit was able to significantly increase GR beta and increase annexin levels, increase NF-kappa B and MAP kinase. This says that urobilinogen works on the glucocorticoid axis, increases the GR beta, thereby shutting the glucocorticoid axis. Now, can urobilinogen work on the intestinal permeability? We worked on primary mice intestinal organoids, and we saw in comparison to ethanol, urobilinogen at 2400 micromolar concentration was able to induce downregulation of claudin and renin, which are the tight junction protein. We also validated this via FITC-Dextran assay, that is the leak assay, as well as the TR assay, that is the electric migration assay. And we found that the urobilinogen was able to completely downregulate it. This suggests that urobilinogen can do a leaky gut. Now, can FMT be a therapy for urobilinogen? Yes, because bacteria produces urobilinogen. If you change the bacteria, then there are chances that urobilinogen level can go down. So what we did is we worked on the rat models and validated our results on the humans. So in the rat models, we did a metaproteome analysis and identify bacteria. And these bacteria were significantly downregulated when in the ALD mice when FMT was done from the healthy mice. So this show concordantly urobilinogen level also decreased. In human also, we found similar results. Pre-FMT, the level of urobilinogen in the circulation was significantly increased, but after 7 days and 20 days of FMT, there was significant downregulation of urobilinogen. Interestingly, the bacteria which were associated to the production of urobilinogen were also downregulated in the human. This suggests that urobilinogen can be reduced by changing or altering the bacteria. So urobilinogen work as a central baseline predictor of glucocorticoid therapy. Response in SAH, gut of SAH patient is populated bacteria which contains a bilirubin reductase gene, enzymes, and FMT from donors could reduce the bacteria than urobilinogen. Now I'm going to show you unpublished work, but this is a very exciting work from my lab. So here we say that microbial thiocyanine induce PRKCH signaling and suppress the glucocorticoid receptor activity in SAH patient. So we first to work on the liver microbiome, and we found that there is a liver microbiome, and in the liver, there is significant increase of this bacteria, which is called as Pseudomonas aeruginosa. This Pseudomonas aeruginosa produces a metabolite, which is called as a thiocyanine, which is toxic. This thiocyanine activates PRKCH, and PRKCH causes downregulation of glucocorticoid receptor activity, thereby causing non-response. Let me brief you with this study. So to perform this study, we took the liver biopsies of responders and non-responders. 92 patients were screened, and we did the metaproteome and metabolome analysis. We did the integration analysis and functionally validated this, and then we did a therapeutic evaluation also. Now, when we did a metaproteome analysis, we were able to identify a good number of bacteria in the liver biopsy of the patient. And in non-responders, you can see the non-responders were distinct than the responders with the genus and the phylum levels. We did the alpha diversity index. We found the non-responders had a lower alpha diversity, but the beta diversity were distinct. And these are the bacteria which were non-responder specific. You can see that Pseudomonas aeruginosa come as a non-responder specific bacteria. Now we did a kinome analysis that if the bacteria is there and it can intrigued the liver liver signaling. So kinases work as a switches, molecular switches. So we'd work on the kinome analysis and we could identify that the non-responders had a distinct kinome profile. And if you see that these are the kinases which were increased in the non-response, the red one, and PRKCH also comes under this kinase activity. So in non-responders, particularly in SH patient, there was significant increase in the kinase activity. Now, we wanted to identify what of these kinases fall under the glucocorticoid receptor activation. So we search out of 1,118 kinases, we identify 148 kinases, and of them, 14 kinases were significantly dysregulated, 7 of them, and most predominantly PRKCH. PRKCH was significantly increased and was under the regulation of glucocorticoid. So we saw the levels of PRKCH, which was significantly increased. Now, what does PRKCH do? Hyperactivation of PRKCH induces a phosphorylation of the glucocorticoid at the site 201 and 203. In our study, we could identify that in non-responder, there was 100% phosphorylation at these particular sites. What does this do? This does not let the glucocorticoid to go into the nucleus, and therefore the translation would go down and NR3C1 level goes down. We validated this in the liver biopsies of the patient, and we found that PRKCH activation was significantly increased, and also by RNA-seq, we showed that PRKCH is significantly increased. So this suggests that PRKCH is under the glucocorticoid regulation and modulates glucocorticoid. Now, we wanted to make an association of the metaproteome, that is the microbiome, to the kinome. So we cross-correlated it and we identified that the Pseudomonas aeruginosa, its metabolite, phyoscinin, PRKCH, and NR3C1, they all correlated directly. So that means that they are all interlinked and may have been associated. Now we searched this and we identified that the level of Pseudomonas aeruginosa was increased in the liver. We found the whole cascade, and we found that the Pseudomonas aeruginosa was secreting 2 enzymes, which are called as, which are PHZM and PHZS, and these enzymes converts chymic acid to phyoscinin. So we found that the phyoscinin production was significantly happening in the liver of non-responder. Increase in phyoscinin resulted in increase in basically inflammatory pathways like NF-kappa B, and decrease in the glutathione antioxidant pathway. And there was high ROS, and therefore there was increase in the PRKCH and NR3C1. So we could also identify key antioxidant response genes, NRF2, going down regulated, and a key one which activates the NRF2 was significantly upregulated. So this suggests that Pseudomonas by phyoscinin works on the PRKCH activation and thereby regulates corticosteroid. So we showed this diagram which say that Pseudomonas aeruginosa produces phyoscinin. It is translocated into the liver and it induces oxidative stress and inflammation, activate the PRK kinase and mediate steroid resistance. Now, this is in the liver biopsy of the patient. Let us validate in the mice model. We did it in 2 mice models. First, which is an NIIII mice model, and second was a chronic 24-week alcohol rat model. So in a mice model and a rat model, we found again there was significant correlation between NR3C1, that is the glucocorticoid receptor, phyoscinin, which is a metabolite of Pseudomonas aeruginosa, PRKCH, where it acts. Again, we saw the whole pathway inside the liver of the back in the mice and rats, and we could find that Pseudomonas was increased. Chymic acid to conversion of chymic acid to phyoscinin was significantly increased. There was significant increase in the genes associated to oxidative stress and inflammation. High ROS and high activates the PRKCH and lowers the NR3C1. So this says that in mice model as well as rat model, if there is alcohol mediate increase in Pseudomonas aeruginosa, Pseudomonas aeruginosa produces metabolite called thiocyanine. This thiocyanine induces oxidative stress and inflammation and activate PRKCH, which works on NR3C1 and this downregulate. So now it is now we wanted to use a therapeutic option. So we wanted to inhibit PRKCH. So please concentrate on this diagram. We show that PRKCH activates ERK and then does a GR inactivation. So what if we downregulate PRKCH or inhibit PRKCH? To do so, we used a small molecule which is called as staurosporine, and we could identify in SAH patient PBMC when this was done all the important proteins associated to basically NF-kappa B signaling, GR degradation, NF-kappa B signaling, downregulation of MAP kinase, and downregulation of PK3 significantly downregulate this black bar. And GR degradation and the GR-induced apoptosis was kind of rescued. So this shows that staurosporine could be used. We worked on animal model, and we could identify that by using staurosporine in NIAAA mice model, we showed significant decrease in steatosis and inflammation in the animal model. And by doing proteomic analysis, we found, if you see, these are three color circles, and this is the biggest circle is prednisolone plus staurosporine, and the blue circle is only prednisolone. So prednisolone was able to decrease only this much amount of protein, but prednisolone plus staurosporine were able to decrease a good amount of protein, and all these proteins were associated to inflammatory pathway. We specifically saw the level of PRKCH was significantly reduced after prednisolone plus staurosporine. DUPS3, which is an inhibitor of PRKCH, was significantly increased. HSP90, which actually stabilizes the glucocorticoid receptor, was increased, and NR3C1, that is the glucocorticoid receptor, was significantly increased. So this says that when we actually inhibit PRKCH, we could rescue the glucocorticoid non-response. So we say that Pseudomonas aeruginosa produces this metabolite called thiocyanine, activate PRKCH. This PRKCH downregulates NR3C1 and causes steroid resistance. So if we use an inhibitor for PRKCH or thiocyanine, we can rescue steroid non-response. We also published this paper with Professor Alam, where we showed that circulating bacterial peptides and linked metabolite signatures are indicative of early mortality in pediatric cirrhosis. Here we identified bacterial metabolites which are predictive of cirrhotic sepsis in pediatric patients. And we showed by using this metaproteome analysis, we showed that plasma lipidome and fungal peptide-based community analysis identified distinct signatures of early mortality in acute liver failure. This paper was also published in CMH, and we showed that there is a significant increase in the fungal species in the circulation, which causes a decrease of the increase in the Kennedy pathway, thereby activation of phosphatidic acid and inflammation in acute liver failure. This is a very important paper where we show that albumin, a bounded metabolite, and microbiome signatures are predictive of acute liver failure, and it was published in Journal of Hepatology the last year. And I should give you a take-home message. So my take-home would be urobilinogen act as a baseline predictor of glucocorticoid therapy response. The gut of SAH patient is populated with bacteria which are having a bilirubin reductase gene, and therefore they are capable of producing urobilinogen. Bacterial dysbiosis and PRKCH-driven kinase signaling mediate steroid resistance in SAH, and targeting PRKCH restores steroid sensitivity and enhances anti-inflammatory activity. This offers a new and potential therapeutic strategy for steroid resistance, and biomolecular map of albumin identifies signatures of severity and early mortality in acute liver failure. I would like to thank my mentor, Professor Sareen. This is my group. Thank you so much. I'm ready for your questions.
Thank you, Jaswinder. I think very nice work. Any questions or comments for him? Seema is there. So
I missed you the beginning of your this thing. Was your
You gave me a topic on human microbiome and I modulated it on human metaproteome because I do that. So human metaproteome and we identified metaproteome associated.
Can you go back to your title? See,
Sure.
this topic or any other topic is always given by Dr. Sareen. So this also, and it was given to basically to Shitang, but he wanted you to do it because you were working in this area. Just go back to your title. Although I do not think I have really worked or read much on in this area. Okay. The topic was a human microbiome to identify victors. Okay, thank you.
It opens the exciting area in alcoholic hepatitis, isn't it? There are a lot of people who are non,
Yeah, we actually,
they are not steroid responders.
no, but ma'am, I work on alcoholic liver disease, so I need to show some of the data of alcoholic liver disease. So we work mostly on alcohol.
I think there are no questions. Thank you.